Oh, hello! It's time once again for the Real People Multi-Game Solitaire Mega Tournament. As you can see, we, as in me, and these two fellows here are in our new digs. We have moved from the upstairs of the house in which I'm renting to my bedroom, which is a lot cozier of a place, really. I have a little more room to stretch, less cramped, still kind of confined with the playing area to a smaller area, but I like the change. I have a light, special little light up there, and then I have a light right here, which is useful because it can shine directly onto my secondary table. So this is a nice new place, which is good to have this cause for celebration because the game we're about to do involves a lot of emotions, I think. For one, actually the main cause of emotions for me personally are the people involved. So we have here Otto, who is going to be our U.S. player in the game that we're going to be playing, which is Labyrinth, the War on Terror 2001 to ? Otto is from probably my least favorite batch of people that I've played with to date. And by that I mean not as individuals. I don't dislike them as individuals, but as a group, for whatever reason, I didn't get along with the group which Otto was a part. And as some of you might know, I'm not the hugest fan of Otto. Just to let you know what kind of person he is, he fantasizes about boats. Alright, a little bit more about Otto, just so for those of you who didn't watch the Imperial 2030 series, which fed into this. The winner of that game was going to be the U.S. player in this game, and this is the winner of that game. Otto is an inventor. His name is Otto. He liked to drive the Budweiser speedboat. An unusual fact about Otto is he walks like Grape Ape. His pet peeve is lint balls in his socks. He'd like to meet Super Dave. His personal motto is "You are what you eat." Most proud of skydiving. Reputation in high school as an athlete. 3 words that describe him are honest, free-spirited, and fun. Now, he doesn't seem like a bad guy, really. To me, he seems maybe like, I don't know, he seems too good in a way that I would find him maybe hard to get along with in real life. It seems like when people are too polished, it's hard to see them. Anyway, so then we also have Fat Matt, who, you know, I have nothing against Fat Matt either. He was a part of probably my least favorite game of the tournament. I don't think the game was actually unfun. I enjoyed the game that he was a part of specifically. I thought it was a great group of individuals. And the game is fun to play, but it's my least favorite of the games, if that makes sense. He was the winner of Ideology, the War of Ideas, which is why he is going to be our jihadist player in Labyrinth, the War on Terror 2001 to ? He's an actor. His name's Fat Matt. His secret fantasy is to fly. He was a communist, by the way, in the game. Golf balls don't climb trees. Pet peeve is mold. He'd like to meet Mickey Mouse. Personal motto is not all toast is crunchy on the inside. That is something I need to think about a little more. He's most proud of his outgoing ability. I don't know what his outgoing ability is, but he has one. His reputation in high school is fine. And 3 words that describe Fat Matt are sweet, confused, and direct. So these are our competitors. And what do they get if they win this game? They get to move on in the tournament, and I'm glad I have this chart up here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, I think you can see it. They are going to be the Qteni in Throne World, and then the Fioli in Time Agent. Not both of them, but whoever wins. So that's what's at stake. Is the semifinals, really. So, you know, there's a chance to kind of turn around some of the negativity that involves this particular leg of the bracket. Labyrinth of the War on Terror 2001 to ? Also seems to invoke strong emotions in people. Everyone I've presented the game to has had some sort of revulsion to some extent. And I don't know if I need to go into that. But let's get started in playing, and yeah. Alright, first I'm going to give a quick overview of the game for those of you who are more interested in real people cards than Labyrinth of the War on Terror 2001 to ? If you would like to know more in depth, more detail about the game, you can check out Marnaudo's video. I think that was particularly good early treatment of the game. So here we have a somewhat abstracted map of the world. It's geared in some ways towards the United States perspective, I'd say, particularly in terms of this ally, neutral, adversary there. That's where how the various Muslim countries feel about the United States of America. You also have the non-Muslim countries. They're going to have a posture towards jihadist extremism. Their posture is either hard or soft. United States, in the scenario we're playing, starts hard because George W. Bush is president, and he presented himself that way. The world at large, the sum of their feelings is going to be either hard or soft, and whether or not that is the same as the United States, that's going to make it easier for the United States to do certain things. The United States also has prestige, which makes it easier to do certain things as well. Here we have jihadist cells and American troops. Jihadist cells have two sides. They have this side, which means they're sleeper. That's the side they want it to be on, because that's the side that they can do things on, and they're also less vulnerable that way. Then they have their active side, which is the opposite. They're more vulnerable, and they can't really do anything when they're that way, except move around. So the Muslim countries have 4 different states of governance, and there are different ways that the different sides can win. But the main way, it mainly, without getting into specifics, has to do with how many countries are at what's called good governance, which looks like this, and how many countries are at Islamist rule. That's kind of the, if the game ends by the decks running out, that's what it's going to hinge on, and there are also some auto victories based on that. Real quick, before I jump in further, I wanted to say it's how many resources the countries have, not the number of countries. I realize I misspoke. That wasn't what I had in my mind, but I said it wrong. So in this way, Iraq is worth more than Jordan in terms of victory. So Fat Matt is the jihadist player. He gets to play 2 cards, and then the U.S. player is going to play 2 cards, and that just keeps going back and forth, and that's how play goes. You can see the cards here have numbers in the corner between 1 and 3. Those are their operational value, which they can use for standard actions, or they can use it for an event if it's either of their alignment, so in Fat Matt's case, if it's jihadist, or if they're neutral. Fat Matt is also going to have to play these US cards. What happens when he plays those cards is that he gets to use the operational number, but then, unless it's used for his first plot, and that's kind of a very specific rule, but an important one because it's a way he can dispose of what I'm about to tell you. He plays it for the operational cost, but then the US gets to invoke whatever the event is, unless he's made it so the conditions that the event is played under are no longer the case. So Fat Matt has to do a little thinking about what 2 cards he's going to play, and that's going to start out the whole game and kind of set the tenor for the US's moves, for Otto's moves, and then what's to come. So here's the pair of cards that Fat Matt decided to play. They're going to work together because he's starting with playing Madrasas as the event, which lets him, and I have to apologize for all my pronunciations just ahead of time. I might apologize again, but if I forget to, let this apology stand for all of my future mispronunciations. This one lets him use this operational number and the next card he plays, and this one is not going to trigger a U.S. event because the U.S. is currently hard on terror, and this says play if U.S. is soft, blah, 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 blah. So it lets him make a recruitment action in any countries that are less than fair governance. So that would be Iraq, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan as well, but he can just do that for free anyway because he has cells there, even if he doesn't have cells. So he's going to attempt to do, he's going to try to get 1 in Libya first, and then he's going to try to get a bunch in Iraq. That's his goal. So first we'll roll for Libya. The jihadist player has to do a lot of dice rolling for things. They're less sure-footed because they're jihadists and they don't have a super strong government. So they do have a better chance in a poorly governed place, however. Okay, so that failed. He's going to try again. I think he's going to try 1 more time, and then the next 2 times are going to be Iraq. And he failed again. That was a poor roll. It's like I wasn't shaking it enough because I was talking. Now he's going to try 2 in Iraq, and he got 1 in Iraq. Not very good. He had 50-50 odds for each of those dice, but he only got 1 in there. But that's still good. He has a foothold now in Iraq without having to move. I don't know if it was such a great first turn for Fat Matt. All right, here we have Otto's hand. Big thing that is going to kind of sway the way he thinks about all of his card plays for this turn is this card right here, the U.S. election. He's going to have regime change in the United States of America, which means he could end up, the U.S. could end up being soft. Now, what the big thing that does is it keeps him from being able to invade countries and change it from Islamist rule to his own power to a U.S. ally. One thing I forgot to mention is there's another scenario that I could have used for this this game where the U.S. began as soft. It's an alternate reality if Al Gore had won. If a different player had won that last game of Imperial 2030, I might have gone with that. But Otto, I felt, would have been hard. So he wants to try and invade prior to running the risk, which is, I believe, a 50-50 of the U.S. Becoming soft on terror. So that is going to change things quite a bit. That's going to almost dictate his play pretty severely. He only has a couple 3s. Those are what he needs for regime change. He has 2 different places he can do it in. One is Libya. Because of this card, he can say that Libya has weapons of mass destruction and then invade due to that. The other one is this 3 here. So we'll see what he decides to do next. Otto surprised me, and he went much lighter than I thought he was going to on this first turn. I thought he was going to do some invasion, but he didn't. Instead, he added to his reserves. What that does is he can use this 2 that's on this little sliding scale here to up a 1 card to 3 later on. 1 plus 2 equals 3. He's not doing that with this 1 card, however. He used it for the Special Forces, which got rid of the terrorist cell, which was in Iraq. In its place is this cadre marker. That basically means that Fat Matt can still recruit there, even though he doesn't have any cells there. Normally you can only recruit where there's a cell, but you can also recruit if there's a cadre marker. Second round of the game, Fat Matt opened it off with Ansar al-Islam, which placed another cell back in Iraq. He followed up by recruiting in Afghanistan, which was all free. He did all 3 of his recruits there. Otto followed that by invading Afghanistan, as you can see, shifting it to a poor ally. He now has this regime change on there. What that does is it means that he cannot pull his troops out until he gets Afghanistan to poor, or until Afghanistan once again becomes Islamist rule. More likely the former. Even more likely it might be a quagmire for a little while. He then followed it up with a disruption of 2 of the cells. When he invaded, they all became active. He disrupted 2 of them, which gave him some prestige. I forgot I need to roll his prestige after the invasion to see what the world thought of that move. And the world was rather impressed. It's more likely that they won't be impressed whenever there's a kind of a random prestige change, but not too much more unlikely. But it went up 3. That's pretty good for Otto. Fat Matt used his turn to move, and then he used his first plot ability, which means he doesn't have to deal with the text on this card here, because the plot was successful. He had 3 plot attempts. He moved to Pakistan, two cells to Pakistan, 1 to Saudi Arabia. 2 of the plot attempts were successful. So there is an unknown plot here. They have varying strengths in Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. The one in Saudi Arabia, pretty much the only effect it's going to have if it goes off is it's going to lower U.S. prestige. The one in Pakistan, however, they're going to add funding, but his funding's fine. The one in Pakistan, however, could lower Pakistan's governance to poor, possibly. So Otto's got to decide whether or not he wants to deal with that, and we'll see. So Otto responded by trying to, first trying to use his newfound prestige to increase the governance in Afghanistan. It was unsuccessful, but he managed to place some aid there, which will make it easier for him to get it up in the future. He then used his second card to pull his troops out of Saudi Arabia, so he didn't actually get rid of either of the plots. For those of you who don't know, the U.S. can simply play 3 operation points worth of, play a 3 and get rid of a plot. He decided not to do it, focused on what he was trying to do. And so the plots go off. The one in Saudi Arabia is not really going to do anything. It would add to funding, but the funding is fine. It can't go any higher than what it is. The funding, by the way, determines, one, how many cards the jihadists can draw, and how many cells they have available to play on the board. The plot in Pakistan, however, is going to have to roll 3 dice. If any of these are under 2, Pakistan's governance is going to go down. And we had a couple under 2. It's only going to go down once, however. That's pretty good for Fat Matt. He distracted Otto a little bit and managed to move towards his goals. Otto just attempted a big move. He moved all his cells out of Afghanistan to Pakistan, and then attempted a major jihad. Now this card here allowed Fat Matt to disrupt one, so he was able to disrupt the cell in Saudi Arabia, and then discard a random card. The only card left in Fat Matt's hand was this Intel community card, so that's good for him because it's not going to be that event is not going to work against him any longer. Renditions, however, is going to be marked on the events thing, and that can be used against Otto in the future, that he used extraordinary renditions, sent detainees to less gentle hosts such as Egypt. So he has a besieged regime in Pakistan. That means if he does another major jihad there, chances are, which he'll need to get some cells in there first, but chances are he will be able to get all these weapons of mass destruction, and Pakistan will be an Islamist power. He kind of took a risk. If he had gotten 2 of the 3 successes, he would have already had that. He doesn't really have the infrastructure in place for another try in Pakistan, and you can bet Otto will be ready for it next time. Whew. U.S. prestige just took a hit. So Otto, he decided to invade Libya, claimed that they had weapons of mass destruction. He was thinking the elections were going to happen, and he wanted to, I guess, get as much under U.S. control before there was regime change. And sure enough, he was right. The people did not vote for Otto for another turn. They vote for Otto instead, the softer Otto. So U.S. was soft. That hurt prestige even more. His prestige roll was horrible. He had a 5 and a 6. You have to choose the lowest of the 2 for it to go down. First you roll to see if it goes up and down, or down. He got down, and then he got rolled a 5 or a 6. Went with the 5 because that's the lowest. Down to medium zone now. Forgot to mention the bright side for Otto, however. He was able to improve the governance of Afghanistan, and he's going to use his final card play to bring it up the rest of the way. He is going to have to place a cell in Central Asia and Afghanistan, but he's going to do that anyway. The U.S. can hold on to a card. He's not going to do that right now. He'd really like to get Afghanistan to good. That would be very good for him. Unfortunately, he's not getting much of a bonus, and since the world is hard and he's soft on terror, he gets a -1 to the roll. Not an advisable move, really, but he got a 3. That's not going to cut it. So I think we're going to try and get in one more hand of cards, and then we'll call it quits. I just want to talk a little bit about what's been going on so far. Very different game than I've ever played before. Both of the players here are pretty direct. I would say, despite what you've seen so far, Otto might be the less direct of the 2 in some ways, but he's certainly not showing it. I think he was really frightened about those elections, and that made him behave in a very different way. I'm actually curious to see how the game goes, because I've never chosen to use the Libya WMD card the way that he chose to use it. I've mainly just used it for the operation value and didn't worry about invading Libya. But, well, you know, it could pay off if Otto can seal off Afghanistan, get it to good. He can. Libya is pretty far away from Fat Matt's reach, so maybe he can at his leisure gradually build it up. But the U.S. tends to be busy most of the time dealing with the jihadist activities, so we'll see. First round of the second turn of the game, Fat Matt began it with the play of Adam Gadan. That let him play the Sistani card without invoking the U.S. power, which is very good for Fat Matt. This event would help Otto greatly, because it would allow him to improve the governance in either Afghanistan, actually just Afghanistan, which is not what he wants. If he can do that, that's going to take a lot of pressure on Otto. For those of you who don't know, well, Otto has all these troops in play. He's drawing far fewer cards, and it makes him less maneuverable. U.S. is already not very maneuverable. So basically all he accomplished, however, with all of this, because he had to roll dice, was he got one terrorist cell in the United States of America for the whole turn, which is, you know, that's not that easy to do. So there we go. Otto, for his part, he played a pair of 1 cards, neutral 1 cards, to get rid of that terrorist cell. So now there's just a cadre in the United States. The United States of America in this game rarely has to roll dice. The jihadist has to roll dice pretty much all the time, unless he's trying to do something in a regime change country, recruit in a regime change country, do something in an Islamist rule country, or move adjacently. United States really only has, it doesn't have to do it when it's taking care of plots, terrorist plots, or when it's trying to invade places. It just does it, plays a card, just does it. However, when it does a war of ideas, which is how it tries to convince countries of its particular posture towards terror, it has to do it. And it also uses the war of ideas to try to improve governance. It has to roll dice. That's where these modifiers are important. So Otto played this card called Safer Now, which is going to give him another kind of roll. First, it's going to have him roll U.S. posture, which he really would prefer if the United States was hard. The United States remains soft, however, but he gets an additional 3 points to prestige, which is going to help him with those war of ideas rolls, and he can decide one non-U.S. country's posture. And so he's going to have to bite his tongue and make someone soft, which is going to decrease his penalty. However different the world is from the U.S.'s viewpoint, that's going to give him an additional penalty to the war of ideas, thereby reducing this bonus. So he's going to go with Serbia. With that 4, he was able to place an 8 in Afghanistan. It's harder to move it to good than it is to move it from poor to fair. So that is, if he was just moving it from poor to fair, he would have been successful with that war of ideas roll. Now it's going to be Fat Matt's turn to move. Is Fat Matt going to try to stop the move of Afghanistan to good governance, or is he going to continue with his focus on Pakistan? All he needs is 1 die roll and he can have Pakistan in Islamist rule, but does he want to give up Afghanistan? Fat Matt used his turn to bring it back down to port. Got rid of the 8 as well, however, so Otto's back at square 1 in Afghanistan. He's got to bring it back up to fair and then bring it back up to good before he can get his troops out of there. Otto managed to succeed in a war of ideas in Pakistan. It cost him quite a bit, though. He had to use his whole turn for one. Made Pakistan a ally. All that did, though, was get rid of the besieged regime marker, which is pretty good because Otto is now going to have to get 2 successes there in order to take Pakistan. It also made Pakistan an ally, so in future turns, Otto can disrupt and get rid of these terrorist cells there. However, in the process, he had to place this Uyghur Jihad, East Turkestan Islamic movement. That made him test China. China is hard on terror, so now the world is hard again. That's going to give Otto another -1 in future War of Ideas rolls. And this is the shortest game of Labyrinth, the War on Terror 2001 I've ever done. So here's what happened. Fat Matt played HEU, was successful in getting a WMD from Central Asia. Then he played a 3-card, and he was able to do a lot of this because Otto had overstretched and was out of cards. So he was able to play 3 cards in a row, knowing that Otto would not be able to retaliate. He played this 3-card, ironically called Axis of Evil, was able to recruit 3 times the United States, got 1 success. It was kind of a long shot, a little bit, but it paid off. He had this Martyrdom Operations card, which allowed him to replace any cell with 2 plot markers. He chose a WMD. The victory condition I didn't tell you about for the jihadists is if they let off a WMD in the United States, they automatically win. There was nothing Otto could do to stop it. So